Hi, I'm Larry Dignan from Constellation Insights, and we're here with Missy Stults. She is Sustainability and Innovations Director at the City of Ann Arbor. Hi, Missy. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Larry. Thanks for having me. Delighted to be here.
And I guess for first off, congrats being on the Sustainability 50 from Constellation Research.
Yeah, what a cool honor.
And why don't we just start at the top about, what are some of your key priorities for the city on the sustainability front?
Thanks for asking. So Ann Arbor has a really audacious, aggressive, and we say scientifically necessary goal. It's called A20, this side, that side, somewhere on my side, that side. It is our community's plan, framework, goals, actions to become carbon neutral in a just and equitable way by 2030. And we recognize how hard that is to achieve. So we mobilize the whole community. We're working with businesses and residents. We're working with our major institutions like the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor Public Schools, our county, to figure out how collectively we can make the change that's necessary to transform kind of our extractive systems into one that's really going to stabilize our climate. So that involves all the things, and I bet we're going to dive into what those things are in a minute.
We are. So I guess for starters, how do you herd the cats across, the city and the businesses, and I guess what goals are city-specific goals, and then what goals do you have to, get that private partnership going?
Yeah, as anyone knows who does their own greenhouse gas inventory or buys their own products, there's actually very little that's under our direct control. So as a local government, about just shy of 2% of our community's greenhouse gas emissions come from our operations, our buildings, our water treatment plant, our wastewater treatment, our water recovery system. And so if I'm going to move towards carbon neutrality for the whole community in a just and equitable way, I got to work with the whole community to do that. So we do it through a lot of different techniques. Certainly there's regulation that we move forward. We have the first water and energy benchmarking ordinance here in the state of Michigan. We're working on a green rental housing policy, but we also have a lot of carrots. We're about to launch kind of an energy concierge for all of our residents. It's kind of like a bat phone that they can call. It launches on Monday, where they can learn what's their next step for their home. And Larry, your home might be in stellar condition and be ready for a cold climate air source heat pump. Whereas my home, the next step for me might be investing in air sealing. And the idea of the concierge is to really help people make that next step, to connect them with resources, services, incentives, rebates, utility programs, to make it very, very easy to kind of do the next thing. So we've got sticks, we've got carrots, and then fun. So we do a lot of initiatives that are really, really fun. They bring people out. We've worked with local brewers, and we brewed a pretty crappy beer where all the ingredients were stressed to mimic what climate change would do to the conditions here in Michigan. Michigan has really great beer, but climate change is going to threaten that. So we produced a crap beer, and I actually have a little logo in the back I can pull out, and it was called Fail of the Earth. And the idea was people got to try it and be like, oh no, beer cannot taste like this. We simply must do something about climate change. So we do a bunch of kind of cheeky things. We work with our local dairy to produce different kinds of ice creams while we're helping them decarbonize their building, just kind of inviting people into the movement in ways that are really responsive, reflective of different lived experiences.
Did you come up with a bad beer idea?
So actually, I have to give credit to Fat Tire Brewing in Colorado. They did this once, and I heard about it, and I actually ordered it. They sold out in like a minute. It was more of like a day. So then we talked to our local brewers and said, let's try it. And they said, absolutely, let's give it a go.
Nice. So what kind of data do you look at? I mean, companies individually have themselves, they have enough troubles just trying to quantify some of this to even get to net zero. And then, you're a city, so you're kind of wrangling an ecosystem of data tracking. How does that work exactly?
Yeah, it's a treat. I will say that. So we do greenhouse gas inventories, and there are protocols just like for businesses. So we have a local government operations protocol. We've got a community protocol. Those are ISO standards that tell us what to count, how to count, to make sure that the way we're doing an inventory is the exact way that Mark in Phoenix is doing his inventory, who I know is another one of the award winners. So that way there's standardization. But we also have to figure out things like purchasing, right? And if you think about that, that's incredibly complex because we're trying to move to scope 3 and life cycle analyses. So I need to understand not just electric use and natural gas consumption, but I need to understand what 120,000 people are buying, where those materials are coming from, how they're produced. And so there's a big movement in the local government field to create methodologies for how we can do that in a meaningful enough way. It'll never be specific, but we can at least have some generalized data, some good data that helps us make more informed policy decisions. The other thing I'd offer, we spend a lot of time thinking about quantitative metrics. In our work at the local level, storytelling is just as important. So we do have a metrics dashboard, which people can go check out, and you can see how we're performing across our carbon neutrality goal, how a bunch of different actions are going in the energy system around circular economy and around resilience. And we're working on the storytelling elements. What does this work mean to the actual people who live here? What does it mean to the local business? Why are they making these investments in these practices? Why are restaurants doubling down on plant-forward diets? Or why are they working on sourcing from sustainable local businesses? So we're really trying to make this part of the culture, make this really accessible. I think I've said that a few times to folks, but we're a storytelling species. We have to tell stories of what this looks like. The quantitative data does matter, but not everything that you measure is really what matters at the end of the day. So we try to kind of lean into qualitative, quantitative.
So would you say the quantitative stuff matters more to the business, but to get the average bear involved, it's a storytelling? I guess what's the balance in terms of getting there?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think that the quantitative data, the return on investment that people talk about, or the supply chain disruption threats that we may face from a business perspective, those are real, right? And being able to quantify those, have redundancies in place, strategic plans, those matter a lot. And we're all still human, right? A business is not a thing in and of itself. At least I don't think so. I think it's its people, and its people have families. There are people they love, and being able to talk about why this work matters to people, whether those are your clients, your employees, yourself, your family, your community, that makes this visceral, and it takes it kind of out of an ethereal space, and it makes it very tangible and real. And bless our hearts, humans, we need each other. We need those stories.
How has the sustainability effort changed over the last 3 or 4 years?
Significantly. So Ann Arbor's had someone, I'll go Ann Arbor and then I'll talk about kind of field broadly. In Ann Arbor, we've had someone working on sustainability for about 30 years. It was traditional kind of environmental sustainability, brownfields management, contamination work, kind of in its early life. And then it pivoted to focus on energy opportunities. But in 2018, Ann Arbor created its first Office of Sustainability and Innovations. And I'm lucky enough to be that first director. But I stand on the shoulders of giants who have really kind of gone and evolved with the field broadly. But we started as an office with a pretty small budget. I think our discretionary budget was 2.5. We were a team of 2.5. Our discretionary budget was $151. We were a team of 2.5. And then we were new, so we needed everyone to work with us, right? I think of a lot in child development terms. We were an infant, and our survival was literally dependent on everyone else caring for us and wanting us to succeed. We have since grown over time and been really fortunate because I think the community is very supportive of these topics and has kind of been waiting to have opportunities to really step into the space. We've seen this work grow so much so. We adopted A20, one of the most aggressive plans in the United States and in the world. We also have started to fund this work. In November of 2022, Ann Arbor became the sixth community in America to vote to tax ourselves to fund climate work. So we passed a 20-year climate millage. That was a hard conversation, but it passed with 71% of the vote. That's kind of amazing. Very few things these days get that much of a kind of mandate to move forward. So we now have funding. We are sprinting at various initiatives. We do incredible amounts of public engagement. I think that sustainability has become part of the identity of the community, and that's what's super exciting. I also think when you look nationally, gosh, even just a few years ago, we might have had conversations where people are still scratching their head. Is the climate really changing? Is this really, really important? And fast forward, those aren't the conversations that we're having very much anymore. Instead, we can point to the wildfires and the fact that we have smoke, inhalation, and asthma attacks in parts of the country that are so far away from the wildfires, but they're feeling the impacts of them. Or we can talk about drought and how we have areas of our country where people are literally leaving because there is no water. Or when our oceans hit 100 degrees in a coral reef, that's catastrophic, right? Climate change is here and now, and I think people are experiencing it. So it is not some distant, far away thing. People are just more, they're more aware, and I think there's a willingness to do something about it.
Do you think those events sort of coalesced with the supply chain too, where like today it seems like when you talk to folks about sustainability, at least the enterprise business side, it really seems like it's part of the supply chain, right? Like, and I don't know if that's because of fuel prices. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but everyone seems to understand if I send one truck instead of 3, it saves me a boatload of dough. And oh, by the way, it's emissions friendly too.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what that event was. I don't know if it was the COVID supply chain squeeze or what exactly, but just kind of curious to see what your thoughts were on that.
It's a really interesting question. And I imagine it was a bunch of things that had sort of been in the works, and then COVID probably pushed us over. And now we're even seeing it continue in different, it just depends on what the products are that we're talking about. I think the vulnerability, as we're having more extreme weather events, we'll just lead into that for a second. We are a global economy, right? Which is beautiful and wonderful that we get to take advantage of all of the extraordinarily culturally rich, extraordinarily beautiful things that are created around our world, and we're able to use human ingenuity to make products together that are far better than would have been possible had we done this all by ourselves. That's extraordinary. That also leads to a vulnerability. A tsunami somewhere in Asia has cascading impacts, right? Extreme drought in Africa is going to have impacts on products and materials and supplies that we have here, just like wildfires in the Pacific Northwest are going to have cascading impacts around the world. And I think people are just paying attention in a way that we didn't. We're paying attention to where we get goods and supplies, materials from, where labor is coming from. We're also asking questions about what our suppliers are doing about that. How are you reducing your own emissions? How are you making sure your supply chains are more resilient? And that includes your employees. How are you making sure your employees are taken care of so they can get to work, that they don't have to worry about what's happening back at home? How are we sort of thinking about this system holistically? I think that has evolved a lot in the last several years. We were pretty unsophisticated in this space, even 5 years ago.
So I guess the follow-up to that would be if you had a magic wand and you could have any tech or any data point to help solve this problem, what would you need to know?
Such a fun question. What would I need to know? I'm going to lean into social science. I would need to know what it's going to take to get people into the movement, right? I think that's it. I think most of the technologies I need are available. I think most of the solutions are either here or right on the cusp of emerging, but we need to adopt them. I think we are both the solution and often the hardest part of the equation to get in motion. So I want to focus on how I get people really excited and move them into the movement.
So something like Scope 3 emissions is less of a data problem and more of a people problem, you think?
I mean, we'll be able to solve it. I'm not super concerned about it. At the end of the day, yes, I think that is right. I think it is more, it's not a people problem, it's a people opportunity of how we invest in the local economy. Think about circular economy. I often give the example of when I am done with this wonderful water bottle, it may not be a water bottle anymore, but it doesn't belong in a landfill, right? It can be melted down and the metals can be used for alternative products. How do we create those markets more locally so that I am investing in labor that's here, in good paying jobs? My dollar is staying in the local economy. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity. I think there's incredible amounts of ingenuity. I think we just got to figure out how we harness it and invest in it.
So last question, you're in the same town as University of Michigan.
Who? What thing?
Big Blue, those guys. can you leverage that research they do? Like, how are they as a partner? Because I imagine you get that solved, you can herd a lot more cats.
We are so lucky to have the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and they are very lucky to have Ann Arbor as their home community. It is a absolutely symbiotic relationship, and we work really closely with them on many things and have a lot of opportunity to be better in other spaces. So the answer I give to folks is, with certain professors and certain institutes, our relationship is phenomenal. I mean, we are co-fundraising, we are doing research together in the community. We are actively co-creating knowledge and putting it into direct application. We're working with residents, we're making life better. In other areas of the university, we have room for improvement. So we're trying to figure out how we both have carbon neutrality goals, how we work together to meet those goals, and at a minimum, don't step on each other in the process of kind of moving things forward. So research, I just wrote a letter of support for a grant. I'm on a board for another opportunity. We're going to keep leaning in to that wonderful machine that we've got at the University of Michigan. But if others want to reach out with some tips or tricks on how you really catalyze significant movement, I would take that.
All right. Any final points or any questions I didn't ask that I should have?
I love that question. I think I just want to express gratitude to everyone in the winner award-winning list, but also to everyone that's doing this work. It is hard work. It is emotional, mental, physical labor, but you are making a difference, and we are seeing it right now in the moment that we're in. The quote I'll leave you with is one I think about a lot. I happen to be of the first generation to fully understand the impacts of climate change, and of the generation that's one of the last to do anything about it. That can be overwhelming, or that can be a real gift. And so I say we lean in, we use it as a gift, and we do the transformational work that's necessary. So can't wait to work with everybody. And thanks, Larry.
Thanks a lot.